Japan is an incredible place to visit with a distinct culture and spirit all its own. A mysterious land, vast and never ending with possibilities when it comes to activities to do and things to learn. So anyway, I'm spending day 6 at Disneyland. Yes, I am an annoying Disney adult and I have had a goal all my life to visit every Disney park in the world. I've been to the resorts in California, Florida, and even Disneyland Paris. Now I get to tick another Disney park off my bucket list by visiting Tokyo Disneyland. But if this is the happiest place on Earth, what about the other Disney parks? Do they have to send a representative to fight in a Mortal Kombat-style tournament for the title of happiest place on Earth? These are the things I think about when I'm all alone and the power goes out. The very first thing you notice about Tokyo Disneyland is that it has a main street like no other because it is covered with a gigantic glass awning. I was told that it provides shade during the hot Japanese summers and can be heated during wintertime. A unique touch to a familiar park formula. My first stop when I got into the park was Pooh's Honey Hunt. I was thinking that this ride was going to be a clone of the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh at Disneyland, but man, was I wrong. This trackless ride is heads, toes, and tails superior to its American counterparts. It's faster, more immersive, the special effects are amazing, and there are any number of thrills waiting for you. Yes, actual thrills. A Winnie the Pooh ride didn't have to go this hard, but dang, I sure am glad it did. It was also here that I learned my first big lesson. Print out a paper version of your digital tickets, especially if you buy your tickets from a third party like Klook. The Disney Park app requires you to scan a QR code to access features, and it doesn't have the option to import a digital code from your digital tickets. Thankfully, some kind fellow Americans helped me out and took a picture of my QR code off my phone and then let me scan that picture in return, and I was able to get my app to work. But Disney, please fix this. It's the 21st century, and if you say tickets are digital, you should not have to print out a paper ticket. Being a huge fan of the Haunted Mansion, I made it my next destination, and this is where I encountered my first disappointment of my trip. Japan's Haunted Mansion is in a sorry state compared to its sisters around the world. It's old, it's dated, and it looks like there haven't been any improvements made since it first opened. Now, if you've never been to a Haunted Mansion ride and this is your first one, you're gonna love it, unless you're a soulless cretin. But for me, having been through 3 different iterations of the mansion, it's definitely the least impressive incarnation. I usually ride a Haunted Mansion 2 or even 3 times on a trip to Disney, but this one time was enough for me. I've never been to a Country Bear Jamboree, and given that they are either closed in the States or their futures are looking bleak, I figured that this might be my only time to actually see these bears in action. Let me tell you kids, you haven't lived until you've seen the Country Bear Jamboree in Japanese. Although the dialogue was in Japanese, the songs were mostly in English, which is a strange choice, but given that country music is mostly an American offering, I can understand why.
Well, there he goes, he hardly knows the heart he's breaking.
I rather enjoyed it, but even here the Bears played to a mostly empty auditorium. In my expert Disney adult opinion, the Bears' time on this earth may be coming to an end.
Aw, for me? Oh.
Next, I made my way to Beauty and the Beast, a ride that everyone's been raving about both on and offline, and let me tell you, everything you've heard about this ride is 100% true. It is an incredible accomplishment that not only eclipses everything else in Tokyo Disneyland, but outshines everything in every Disney park I have ever visited. Everything from the queue to the pre-show to the ride itself is brilliantly realized to the point that you honestly feel like you've been transported into the beloved movie. The line for this ride was insane, over 2.5 hours long, so I paid for the premiere access so I could skip it. Was the $20 worth it? Yes. Yes, it was. This is a ride I will remember for the rest of my life. In Tomorrowland, I came across the Happy Ride with Baymax, and although I didn't ride it, I did hang around and watch. It is definitely a happy ride as the riders, the workers, and those waiting in line sang along with the soundtrack. The atmosphere was incredibly joyous. I loved it. I loved just watching this. I also checked out Stitch Encounter. It's a lot like Turtle Talk with Crush, only it stars my favorite Disney character of all time. True, it was all in Japanese and I could only understand every other word, but I loved watching the children's reactions when they were speaking to Stitch. The delight was contagious and broke the language barrier. Strangely enough, every time I visited a Disney park in the last few years, I've missed Pirates of the Caribbean because the ride was closed. It happened in Disneyland Paris and Disneyland Resort in California. The Tokyo version was open and I eagerly got in line and was in for a very pleasant surprise. Do you know how the American versions of the ride got rid of the winch auction and the scene where the pirates were chasing the women around the village? Those scenes are still part of the ride here and reminded me of how Pirates of the Caribbean was whenever I was a kid. I really don't have a major problem with how the rides in America were reworked, and I really think that people who do are being too whiny about it if you want my opinion. But this really squeezed my member berries into a refreshing juice, and I loved revisiting the classic version of this famous dark ride. Monsters, Inc. Ride and Go Seek was my next stop. I'm a fan of the Monsters, Inc. ride at California Adventure, but this version completely blows it away. In this version, you're given a flashlight and tasked with finding Boo in the factory. If your flashlight shines on a monster, you get an amusing gag. The ride is full of those gags, and I imagine that no ride experience is the same. There are even some darned impressive special effects on the ride that I still haven't figured out. It's a lot of fun both as a ride and as a game.
This is my first time in Toontown ever at any Disney park. Every time I've tried to come in the past, it's either been closed or it closed before I could get to it.
This time, though, I made it and I finally got to ride Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin. I'm a huge fan of dark rides and fun houses, and this experience is a memorable and snappy combination of both. I really don't like Disney's erasure of Roger Rabbit for most of their parks, and it's nice to see he's still represented here. Splash Mountain was next.
On Splash Mountain, they're putting the heftiest boy in the first seat. These poor people, they don't know what's going to happen to them.
Given that these controversial log flumes are being rebranded in the United States, I thought that this was probably going to be my last time to be able to ride the original version. I must say, after the disappointing and seemingly run-down Haunted Mansion, this is the best working version of Splash Mountain I've ever been on. Heck, the last time I rode Splash Mountain in California, the lights on the inside of the ride were completely off. They were hiding something that wasn't working, which I'm assuming was everything. Here, everything was well maintained. All of the animatronics work, and the sound was perfect all the way to the big drop. And then, this happened.
We're stuck. That's what I get for riding this ride.
I was able to eventually get off the ride, and it didn't ruin my experience too much. All in all, Tokyo Disneyland has some offerings that any Disney enthusiast should definitely check out. The Beauty and the Beast ride, Hide and Go Seek, the Honey Hunt, all definitely my favorites. But the rest of the park feels dated in comparison. There's really no reason that the Haunted Mansion should look this neglected. I mean, it's a Haunted Mansion, so it should look neglected, but it shouldn't be this neglected. I was wet, and I was tired, so I decided to end my day then and there. What do you want from me? I'm pushing 50. I'm old. Get off my lawn. Actually, I'd pretty much ridden everything and done everything I'd wanted to do. It's one of the great things about being a single rider. You don't have to wait so long to get on a ride. And so, I bring to an end day 6. But not my Japanese Disney adventure, because there is another Disney park right next door, and many claim that it's the best Disney park in the world. if not the best theme park in the world. Is the hype true? I guess we'll have to find out tomorrow for day 7 of my Japanese adventure.